Tonight, the dangers of a third-party candidate. Democratic fear and frustration is growing as Howard Schultz considers an independent bid for the White House.
He doesn't quite grasp the depth of the impact that decision would have.
It would provide Donald Trump with his best hope of getting reelected.
I would encourage him to get into the Democratic primary and test his ideas that way.
And those were some of the tamer, more kind ways of putting it. Out front now, Jill Stein, 2016 Green Party presidential candidate. Jill, I appreciate your time. Good to have you back. So, you know, you've been there. You ran as a third-party candidate. Should Howard Schultz run?
Well, you know, it's not for me to say, put it that way. I think this is up to the voters. And, you know, I think the panic, the spoiler panic that we're seeing is in many ways a reflection of the panic about, you know, the state of our economy, the state of our climate, the state of our health care, which 30 million Americans don't have any access to, and those who've got health insurance can't afford it. You know, people are really understandably focusing their panic about the economic emergency that most Americans are facing on this election. Understandably, but there's a win-win solution here. We don't have to shut down debate and dialogue in our democracy. We don't have to be in the business of blaming and shaming independent and third-party voters or independent and third-party candidates. There's a solution called ranked choice voting, and everybody should know about it and demand that we have it. The people in the state of Maine just got it. It does away with any possibility of a split election. Spoilers, it makes sure that we have candidates elected by majorities, and it gets rid of negative campaigning. So it's a win-win.
So, look, when it comes to the, you know, and I understand you've been advocating for that, but the system we have coming into this election, right, is still what it is. I mean, given
we have 2 years.
Well, yeah, I mean,
2 years until the next election, and we can wait. If half of the, panic that was focused on silencing candidates, which is not good for democracy, if instead that energy were put into lobbying our legislature and getting state legislatures, that's what it takes. This doesn't have to pass in Congress. It can just be at the level of states. There are like 12, a dozen or so states right now that have all Democratic legislatures and a Democratic governor that could pass this in the blink of an eye.
You dealt with it, is what I'm saying. You're not surprised by what you call the panic that is greeting Howard Schultz.
I really understand, you know, that people are, anguished, are just in a state of emergency right now, and that gets focused not always on the most productive places. We need to fix that with a functioning democracy. Choice is essential. There are 100 million voters right now who are not voting because these are largely black, brown, poor, and millennial who've really been locked out of our economic system and locked out of our political system. We need to bring them back in. Choice is not the enemy of a fair and just
and turnout in this
system.
country, of course, has long been something we should all lament, how terrible it is. Look, Jill, I want to turn to Russia now, and the reason I want to do that is because you may have been very important to Hillary Clinton's loss in crucial states in 2016, and I don't say that negatively. I just say you ran. You ran when you look at the margins in Pennsylvania, in Michigan, in Wisconsin. The amount of votes you got, Jill, was greater than Trump's margin of victory, okay? Tonight...
Okay, can I respond to that? Because that is the essence of the smear campaign intended
No, it's not a smear campaign. No. Let me finish my point.
But it's false. It is false. It's
not false. Those are the numbers. It's true.
No, but
you're saying you shouldn't be maligned for it. I'm not maligning you for it, Jill. Jill, hold on. Let me make my point. I'm not maligning you for it. I'm simply saying you were important and you got more votes than the margin of victory. It is what it is.
Well, I think that is purely wishful thinking because those are the
numbers.
Important to look
what
at
do
the
you mean it's
facts.
wishful thinking?
Democrats don't own green votes, and in fact, exit polls were done, including by CBS.
I'm simply saying you got more votes than Donald Trump's margin of victory. I don't care whether you were for the pink, blue, and purple party. It doesn't matter. You got more votes, and I want to. And the reason I think it's important.
But remember, 100 million people didn't vote at all.
And I agree with you.
Think you could just say that those green votes belong to Democrats. That's a problem. The arrogance of Democrats.
Then maybe Donald Trump's margin would have been double what it was, is what you're saying. But let me get to the reason I'm asking you the question, Jill. Because in a new filing tonight, Robert Mueller is saying there's a pro-Russian Twitter account that used information from his criminal case to discredit the Russia investigation. So they took this information out there. They're trying to discredit the Russia investigation. It is the same Russian troll farm that attempted to meddle in the 2016 election, the same Russian troll farm that a recent report prepared for the Senate Intelligence Committee concluded tried to help you with social media posts. Not at your behest, but tried to help you.
And did you know that that same cybersecurity firm, the New Knowledge firm, shortly after putting out their report, which should be repudiated by the Senate committee because they were exposed within a week by the New York Times for conducting a false flag Russian interference campaign in the 2017 Senate election. So you can't just take this stuff at face value. You got to look at it.
Well, the
and
Senate Intelligence Committee has not at all
facts,
repudiated this, not Democrats or Republicans.
well, they should.
This is the report that they have.
Just go Google the New Knowledge cybersecurity report, and you'll see that they conducted a false flag Russian interference campaign. And the CEO of New Knowledge has been deplatformed by Facebook for interfering in our elections. Mm-hmm. So you can't just take this stuff at face value, unfortunately. And here's the kind of stuff that they claimed. If you can see this, this is like Jesus, if you agree with him. These are the kinds of incredibly inept postings that were put on Facebook that that is being claimed persuaded voters to vote for me. We know that 90% of their postings had nothing to do with the election. This is a BS
Donald Trump doesn't want anybody to doesn't think that anyone was persuaded to vote him wrongly either. I mean, look, Jill, here's the thing. Michael Flynn has pleaded guilty to lying. Hold on, let me finish the question. I understand. Michael Flynn has pleaded guilty to lying. He was at that dinner. You know, you were there too. Again, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with being at the dinner. I'm just saying you happen to be at this dinner. Everyone's made a big deal about him being at the dinner. Putin's there. You're there. He's there in Moscow. You know, now we're told about this report. You dispute it. I get that. But my question for you is, has anyone from Robert Mueller's team called you, contacted you?
Right? Michael Flynn has turned state's evidence. So if there was anything untoward going on at that dinner, Mueller would certainly know about it. And Mueller has not contacted me, not whatsoever.
Not whatsoever. And that I think is important.
And many of the claims that were made, like that I was being funded by Russia, are absolutely false. I paid every penny of that expenditure and was completely public about the reasons for my trip, which were about calling for a ceasefire and a peace offensive in the Middle East and for a global Green New Deal. And this was public from before the time I went. It became an issue. You know when it became an issue? 8 months later, after I got the Green nomination, then suddenly Democratic operatives were launching this smear campaign.
But to be clear, because I think, Jill, you said something very important,
which is attempting to silence political opposition, and that's not healthy for a democracy.
But just to be clear, you say no one from Robert Mueller's team has reached out to you, no document requests, nothing from you or anyone that works for you. Just to be clear, because I think that's important for people to know.
Yes, absolutely. And if there was a shred of, wrongdoing on my part, Mueller would certainly know about it because Michael Flynn has turned state's evidence. So, and besides, I was completely public throughout about exactly what I was doing, tweeting about it, my speech to a meeting at RT, which was attended by Jesse Ventura, by Rocky Anderson, the former mayor. It was a meeting of many peace advocates, which is how I happened to be there. And it was all very public. So the whole thing has been really part of a smear campaign on something which I think should be a model for international relations. We need to be talking to our adversaries as well as our friends if we're going to deal with 2,000 nuclear weapons on hair trigger alert between us and the Russians. We've got to be talking to them and not just fanning the flames of the Cold War, which is very dangerous right now.
All right. Well, Jill Stein, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron.
And next,